Hi, I'm Bruce Brunger, professional puppet maker in training and the creator of the BlindViews puppet. Some people have asked me to make a video detailing how I made the puppet, so here it is. The BlindViews puppet was designed like a Sesame Street Muppet style puppet with a head and body made of shaped foam and fabric. Kind of like this, you see, with the head, very soft foam, and here's a body. So the BlindViews puppet was basically this style, and then you have to clothe it with fabric like this. I customized the puppet to look like BlindViews himself, with his iconic mohawk hair, silver headphones, tattooed arms, goatee and mustache, pierced lip, and scowling mouth and rocker t-shirt. I think it turned out a lot like him, and it captures his unique look. So let's show you in this video how I put the puppet together. Now unfortunately I didn't shoot any video, but I took a lot of pictures along the way, all throughout the process. And so I'll show you those and explain the process as it went along. Now, I would be seriously remiss if I didn't give a special shout out of recognition and credit to YouTuber Adam Krudinger, who's a professional puppet maker and puppeteer. He creates professional grade puppets for live performances, TV, commercials, and more. He's created a channel on YouTube with many professionally produced how-to tutorial videos on the various aspects and secrets of professional grade Muppet style puppet construction. His videos take you through all the steps, from early conceptualizing of your puppet design by using clay models, to the cutting of the foam shapes for the head, body, arms, and hands, to the fitting of the fabric skin overlay for the puppets, creating hair and eyes, noses, and ears for the puppet, and much more, all with great attention to detail to show all the tricks of the trade that professional puppet makers use. His videos are well suited for both beginners as well as experienced puppet makers, and his videos are fast-paced and entertaining. He's a great presenter and teacher, and his enthusiasm for his craft is really contagious. This guy is very talented, and his slickly produced videos inspired me with enough how-to information for me to construct my puppets. So I utilized his techniques and tweaked them a little here and there for my own use as I created the BlindViews puppet. So if you're interested in seeing in action the techniques that I used to make the BlindViews puppet, please visit Adam Krudinger's YouTube channel and check out his videos. So the first step was to conceptualize the puppet. So what I did was start out with some conceptual drawings and made some notes about the features that I wanted for the puppet based on how Mr. BlindViews looked. So I took some of that from his picture and then started sketching out my thoughts, and also giving thought to how I wanted the mouth action to look. I wanted it to look like the blue Sesame Street puppet, and also gave some thought to creating some various accessories that the puppet could use. The puppet would have posable hands to hold them. So now let's show some shots of the puppet creation process. I started out first with a lump of clay. I shaped it in the form of the head that I wanted and shaped it the way I liked. The front of the face and the back of the head, as you can see here, kind of like a potato-shaped head. I was looking for a unique view. And then as I added a little more clay as I went and started to shape it a little more. And then I started to position where I wanted the mouth. So I used a mouthwash cap as a convenient semicircle to press into the clay. And again, I was going for that blue Sesame Street puppet look. So as you can see, it makes a nice indentation there, and then I trim it out with an X-Acto knife and cut it out. And then I need to smooth out the edges of the cut mouth, so then later on when I do an overlay, it'll rest on it nice and straight. And here is where I'm overlaying layers and layers of tape, multiple layers, onto one half of the clay model head. And I draw an exact half marking there and trim off the excess tape along the lines that I've drawn. And I only need to use one side of that. And now I carefully peel off all of that trimmed tape overlay, kind of like an orange peel, and carefully pull that off without tearing it. And I made certain cuts or darts along the way there that allow for the curvature of the head. And next, I lay the peeled off head pattern onto a clean piece of paper and then get ready to trace it to make a nice clean tracing onto the paper. And here, after I'm finished, I pull it off, and then I take it to a Xerox machine and I enlarge it to the size that I want for the actual puppet head. So I had to enlarge it about 163% in this case to get a 9-inch tall head. So this is the resulting pattern that's properly sized. Now for the head itself, I'm using a 1/2 inch medium density foam. You buy rolls of this at fabric stores like Joann's or wherever. So I roll it out, and then I use the head pattern and I start to trace it out on the foam, as you can see here. Now I need to do 2 sides of it, so I need to flip it over and do a mirror image of it. So I end up with 2 traced patterns onto the foam, and it's all ready for cutting. So I take some scissors and very carefully cut the foam along the lines of the pattern that I traced. And then I take a hot glue gun and start to glue the edges and join them together. And as you can see, it starts to form up again. And then, as you noticed, it looks very similar to the original clay model, but it's a little larger now. It's about 9 inches tall. And that is the foam base for the head. And next I decide to make some hands. These are going to be posable hands. So first I need to cut out a pattern on the foam for the arm and the hands, and then actually cut out the foam hands themselves. So I'm actually making 4 hands. They're going to be sandwiched together. And what goes in between them, of course, are these wires. I want the fingers to be posable and bendable. So I pre-measure these wires for the fingers, and I get them all bent and ready to attach to the control rod, and then I'm going to glue them and sandwich them all together between the foam hand layers. Now here you see me shaping the control rods. The inside of the hand is where all the wires for the fingers are going to attach. And these will be glued and sandwiched together. And here's one hand that has all the wiring that's all bent and laid in place. And so next I'm going to put some hot glue all over that, and then sandwich it together with another half of the hand. And as you can see here, the foam is glued together. And now I have the left and the right hands all set, and they're already mounted on their control rods. And the fingers are fully bendable. But now I still have to overlay them with the fleece skin and attach them to arms. Now for the mouth, you have to create a mouth plate, a stiff mouth plate. So I use a Tupperware container. The plastic was good for that. And I pre-measured the mouth from the foam head and created a paper template, and using that I was able to cut out the shapes of the plastic for the mouth plates. Then I measure my fingers on the placement on the mouth plate for measuring the elastic that's going to go on the mouth plate to hold the fingers in place. But to make it easier to sew, I use a hole punching tool, and I punch a series of sewing holes through the plastic, which will be for using sewing on the elastic strips. So here's a view of the mouth plate with the holes already punched and ready to sew. And while that's going on, I'm also tracing the body pattern in foam and trimming that out. It takes 2 halves, which have to be glued together to make the body. And once again, I use a hot glue gun, and I go a couple inches at a time, and I seal it up and pinch it together as the hot glue sets. And as you can see, nice and finished body. Now I need to cut a neck hole. So I take some scissors. First I draw where I want that neck hole to be and how big. And I take some scissors and trim it, and then do a test fitting on my arm to make sure my hand and wrist are able to get through and move around easily, because that's where the head is going to go. And I start sewing on the elastic strips onto the mouth plate. And that's important because the finger straps are going to help keep your fingers in place while you're operating the puppet's mouth. So they make a nice snug fit. Now we cut the fleece skin that's for sewing that and fitting it over the foam body. And also for the head, I start draping the fabric and marking the darts that have to be made. in order for cutting and shaping for a nice tight fit around the head itself. So I take a series of pins and I make sure that the contour is nice and tight and snug, and then I will trace the lines and trim that fabric. And earlier I had the foam hands ready, so now I've sewn fabric for the hands, and I work the fingers one at a time into the fleece hand and get it all ready. With the hands ready, now I'm ready to do the arms. And of course, I had BlindViews pre-select a couple of the tattoo sleeves, which I was going to use on the arms. And here is some views of the fleece for the head, and did a test fitting over the foam head there to see how it fits. And now I'm ready to actually glue in the mouth plate. So I used some contact cement for that. And then I test it out, check out the movement, and it all seems to work pretty well with the mouth plate. And for the mohawk, I wanted to make sure it had enough volume, so I created a foam base to start with, pre-measured that, and then I glued the base, the foam base, onto some fabric, some thick fur. It's about 1.5 inches thick. And I wrap it around and start trimming it a little bit. And this foam under the fur will be glued directly onto the head. As you can see, once we have it there, I'm going to use some contact cement to glue it onto the head. The sides of the mohawk, of course, need to be styled, so I'm going to take some Elmer's glue to stiffen the hairs and make them all go straight up. And here is the mohawk after it's been installed on the head. As I said, I used Elmer's glue for the sides of the mohawk to make the hair stand straight up and to stay together. And that looks very nice. And for the nose, start with a little foam base and start to sew a fabric around it, kind of like a drawstring around the edge. And then I nestle the foam base inside, and then I pull the drawstring tighter, as you can see here, so it fits snugly around the contours of the nose base. So now it's ready to be sewn onto the face of the puppet. And also now I wanted to work on BlindViews silver headphones. So to do this, I used styrofoam balls and I cut them in half and then painted them with silver paint. And then later I would add black foam trim and wiring to make the headphones look like headphones. And here's some views of the headphones themselves. I attached fabric earlobes to the headphones that I would put rings on later, and used a clothes hanger wire and some foam to create the headset. After that, I glue it on to the puppet, and as you can see, it's coming together pretty nicely. And I made a nice black BlindViews branded t-shirt, similar to the kind of black shirts he uses on his show. Now it's time for the facial hair, so I'm working on the goatee. I take several strips of fabric because he has a multicolored goatee, sewing them together, and then I use some glue to attach it to the puppet. And I have to make the mustache separately and put that on. And now you can see the completed look for the face. So now that's all that's left is to attach the arms. And here's the tattooed arms with the, tattoo sleeves already attached, and they're ready to sew onto the body of the puppet. And here's a close-up shot of me sewing the arms onto the puppet. And these tattoo sleeves are kind of like ladies' pantyhose, so have to be careful not to pull too hard with the thread because it can cause the fabric to run. And of course, no puppet is complete without some accessories. So I have various signs of famous sayings that BlindViews uses on his show, a microphone that he could hold, and also because BlindViews is a rocker, I had to make a rockin' heavy metal guitar that the puppet can hold. And so here's the finished puppet, as you can see, various views here. It turned out really well. I think we captured all of his iconic look, all the way from the mohawk to the beard. He even put a piercing on the bottom lip, as you can see. The tattooed arms look great. The fingers are posable, and you can bend the fingers in any configuration. He can hold things like the guitar and signs, and I think he turned out really, really well. And now it's time to prepare the package. So one of my hobbies is making greeting cards. I like to call them not quite a Hallmark cards, with kind of a motif of heavy metal rock band logos in the background, and put all that together. And likewise, I did the same type of design for the wrapping paper for his package, with a lot of heavy metal band logo marks. And so I put the puppet all in the package and sent it off to the post office. And we waited and waited for over 14 days for it to make its way from California to Pennsylvania. And then finally the day came where BlindViews was able to do the unboxing. The package arrived safe and sound. And let me tell you, he looked like a kid on Christmas. He was having fun opening that package and exploring and seeing what's inside. And I put little things along the way, packing in there to kind of entertain as he unpacks. And so now this is the first time that BlindViews gets to see the finished puppet. As you can see, it's a good-sized puppet. It's about 28, almost 30 inches, about 28 inches in height. It's got a full foam body and a foam head, and with control rods and posable fingers. As you can see, it looks the spitting image of BlindViews, and I can tell he's really happy with it. There's the card that I made for him and included in the package. My not quite a Hallmark card. And so there is the BlindViews puppet, which BlindViews has named Seymour, as in he's able to see more. And now he's using them in his channel, on his video channels. And he uses kind of a modulated voice for the puppet. That's going to be fun to see how he uses the puppet in the channel going forward. So, BlindViews, I hope you enjoy him.